Emily Carter had mastered the art of being invisible. In a city where power was everything, she was just another nameless face, a waitress people barely acknowledged. Until tonight. She wove through the upscale restaurant, balancing a tray, exhausted and numb. Same routine, same struggle. But tonight, the air felt different. Then she felt it. A gaze. Sharp, unwavering. She turned, and her breath hitched. Sitting in the corner, radiating raw power in a black suit that probably cost more than her entire life, was Adrian Blackwood. The Adrian Blackwood, billionaire, ruthless CEO, the man who could break companies with a phone call. His name alone sent shivers through Wall Street, and he was staring directly at her. Her pulse slammed against her ribs. She must have done something wrong, spilled something, angered the wrong customer. Why else would a man like him even notice her? Then his deep voice sliced through the noise. "You are late." Emily froze. What?" His jaw tightened as if he despised repeating himself. "I do not like waiting. Sit." Her brain short-circuited. Sit? What was happening? Then she saw it. The untouched menu. The empty chair across from him. The slight annoyance in his eyes. He thought she was his blind date. Her throat went dry. She should tell him the truth. She should walk away. But for once in her life, she did not want to be invisible. Her hands trembled as she slid into the chair, every nerve screaming at her to run. Adrian leaned forward, eyes locked onto hers. No introduction. I expected more confidence from a woman who makes a man wait. Emily's heart pounded. If she hesitated, he would see through her in an instant. So she lifted her chin, forcing herself to be someone else, someone who belonged here. "I wanted to see how long you would last before losing patience." A flicker of intrigue. His lips curved, just slightly. "Interesting. I was told my date was different. Seems they were right." The waiter arrived. Adrian did not even glance at the menu. A bottle of Chateau Margaux, 2009. Her stomach dropped. That wine alone cost more than my apartment. Then his gaze flicked back to her. A challenge. "What would you like to drink?" Her mind spun. This was a trap. He wanted to see if she would hesitate, if she belonged in his world. So she met his gaze and said, "The same." Silence. Then something unexpected. He smirked. "Not afraid to match me?" She held her breath. "Should I be?" His eyes darkened. "We will see." Then he laughed, low, amused, interested. She had no idea that her life had just changed forever. Emily could feel the weight of Adrian Blackwood's gaze pressing against her like an unspoken dare. This was dangerous. She had no idea how long she could keep up the act. But one wrong move, one slip of the tongue, and it would all come crashing down. The waiter poured the wine, and Adrian lifted his glass, swirling the deep red liquid as if he could see right through her. "Tell me," he said, voice smooth but laced with curiosity, "why did you agree to this blind date?" Her throat tightened. Think. Think. She could not afford a second of hesitation. She smiled, tilting her head slightly, as if amused by the question. "Why did you?" Adrian's smirk did not falter. "I do not usually waste time on strangers." He took a sip, his piercing blue eyes locked onto hers. "Yet here you are." A test. Another one. He was dissecting her, peeling her apart layer by layer. Emily took a slow breath. If she showed even a sliver of nervousness, he would see through her. So she met his gaze head-on. "Maybe I enjoy being an exception to the rules." His fingers tapped against his glass, just once. But she caught it, a subtle sign of intrigue. He was interested. A waiter approached with the menus, but Adrian waved him off. "We will not need those." Emily stiffened. He leaned forward slightly, eyes gleaming. "Do you trust me?" Her heart pounded. Was this part of the date, or was he pushing her again? She forced a smirk. "Should I?" His voice dropped to a low hum. "You tell me." Before she could respond, the waiter returned, setting down 2 plates. Exquisite dishes, plated like artwork. Expensive. Luxurious. A world she did not belong to. Adrian picked up his fork, watching her expectantly. If I do not eat, he will suspect something. Emily lifted her fork and took a bite. The flavors exploded in her mouth, unlike anything she had ever tasted. But before she could react, Adrian spoke again, cutting straight to the bone. "You are different from what I expected." She swallowed hard. "Is that a good thing?" His smirk deepened. "For now." Her pulse pounded in her ears. For now. She had walked into a game she did not know the rules to, and the most powerful man in the room was playing to win. Emily's fingers tightened around the stem of her wine glass, careful not to let her grip betray her nerves. She had been walking a razor's edge since the moment she sat down, and Adrian Blackwood was circling like a predator, waiting for the first sign of weakness. He leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable, but his eyes, those sharp, calculating eyes, never left her face. "You are still a mystery to me," he murmured, twirling his glass between his fingers. "I do not like mysteries." Emily gave a soft, amused smile, masking the panic flaring in her chest. "Then maybe you should not have agreed to a blind date." A slow smirk tugged at the corner of his lips. "Oh, I rarely agree to things I am not in control of." Her heart pounded. She had not just stepped into his world, she had stepped into his game, and she had no idea what the stakes were. Before she could respond, Adrian reached into his jacket and pulled out his phone. He tapped the screen once, then placed it face up on the table. Emily's breath caught. Her face was on the screen. A picture. Grainy, black and white, likely taken from the restaurant's security footage. And beneath it, her real name. Her stomach twisted into knots. He knew. Adrian studied her reaction with eerie calm. "I was willing to overlook the fact that you did not introduce yourself." He tapped the phone once, the sound like a judge's gavel slamming down. "But then I did something I always do when something feels off. I checked." Emily forced herself to breathe, to think. This was it. The moment the illusion shattered, the moment he ordered her thrown out, humiliated in front of a room full of people who never even saw her as real to begin with. But he did not move. He just watched her, waiting. Emily swallowed hard. If she hesitated, if she stammered, if she so much as blinked wrong, this was over. So she did the only thing she could. She tilted her head, locked eyes with him, and said, "So do you always run background checks on your dates?" Silence. Then Adrian laughed, a deep, rich sound that sent a chill down her spine. Not of fear, of something far worse. Interest. Dangerous, intoxicating interest. "You are fearless," he said, amusement flickering in his gaze. "Or reckless. Either way, I find it—" His fingers tapped the table, considering. "Fascinating." Emily's pulse roared in her ears. She had just bluffed her way through the most dangerous moment of her life. But she was not safe, not even close. Because Adrian Blackwood did not just let things go. And now, he wanted to know more. Emily's pulse thundered in her ears. She had done the impossible. She had bluffed her way past Adrian Blackwood's suspicion. But the way he was looking at her now, like a puzzle he was determined to solve, sent a shiver through her. The moment stretched, taut with something unspoken. Then Adrian leaned forward, his voice silk and steel. "Tell me, Emily Carter." His fingers traced the rim of his wineglass. "Why does a waitress pretend to be someone she is not?" Her stomach clenched. He knows my name. She could still play this off. She had to. Emily lifted her glass, mirroring his posture, forcing a slow smirk. "Why does a billionaire pretend to be interested in a blind date?" Adrian's gaze darkened with amusement. "Touché." He took a slow sip of wine, his eyes never leaving hers. "But you did not answer my question." Her throat went dry. She needed an out, a way to turn the tables before he decided she was a problem that needed eliminating. So she leaned in, lowering her voice just enough to make him listen. "You are a man who runs background checks on dates, a man who does not like mysteries. If I were really just a waitress—" She let the words settle before delivering the blow. "You would have walked away by now." Something flickered in his gaze. Not anger, not even annoyance. Curiosity. Then in the most unexpected move of the night, Adrian laughed. A low, rich sound that sent a jolt of electricity through her veins. "Emily Carter," he murmured, swirling his wine. "You are full of surprises." The moment shifted. The air between them thickened. Then Adrian's phone buzzed. His expression hardened instantly. He glanced at the screen, then back at her, studying her like he was making a decision. Finally, he exhaled, setting his glass down. "I have to go," he said, standing. But then, he reached into his jacket and pulled out a sleek black card. He slid it across the table, tapping it once. "I do not offer second chances often." His piercing gaze locked onto hers. "Do not waste it." Emily's fingers hovered over the card. A single embossed number. No name, no title. But she knew what it meant. A test. A door to a world she never belonged to. Until now. Her heart pounded as Adrian turned to leave, his presence a force that seemed to bend the air around him. But just before he reached the exit, he paused. One last glance over his shoulder, and then with the faintest smirk, he was gone. Emily sat frozen, staring at the card. Her life had just changed forever.